Hey everyone, I'm Zach. Welcome back to Stories by the Cup. Today, we'll be spending some time with The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson. We'll start with a spoiler-free introduction, what it's about, who I think might be interested in it, and why I couldn't wait to pick it up. Then we'll dive into my reflections on what stayed with me, what excited me, and what I couldn't stop thinking about. So let's make a cup of coffee and settle in. Before we turn the page, here's a spoiler-free section on what it's about. This is the third book in the Wax and Wayne series of the Mistborn saga. As always, we're following Wax and Wayne and their companions in a story that, unlike the first two, is becoming a larger scale epic. There is a darkness on the horizon that even Harmony fears and struggles to understand. We're expanding this world's current era, getting to see cities and places outside of Elendil, while following our heroes on a quest for these mythical metal mines that were used by the Lord Ruler. And for me, I was really excited to get to see the relationship between Wax and Steris continue to grow. After the last book, Steris became my absolute favorite character, and I can't wait to see what more we can learn about her and how their relationship develops. What really stands out in this book series in general, but particularly in this book, is the amazing character growth. It feels like each character has a full arc, one with twists and turns, as we go on this wild adventure that truly does make a grand scale epic start to come alive in this third book. We also get to see the magic system continue to expand. There's new technologies at play that really liven up what is happening and adds to the story in a very unique and meaningful way. This story has a bit of an Indiana Jones vibe and feel to it, with a Wild West aesthetic, while kind of going back to the roots of the Mistborn saga, the original Mistborn saga, and that epic scale adventure we get really starts to come alive here. The complexity of the issues and experiences that we go through with all the characters, and adding on to the political turmoil that is building in their world, on top of the complexity of their relationships, particularly with Wax and Harmony, getting to see the reluctancy of him not wanting to do or follow the path that he feels Harmony is setting out for him. If you loved the original Mistborn saga, you will truly, truly love this one. It really does bring back that epic call to adventure that we saw in the first series, with a bigger complexity to the characters and the relationships amongst them. From this point on, we'll be talking more openly about the story. If you haven't finished the book, this is a great place to pause. I'd love for you to come back once you've turned that last page and share your thoughts with me. 6 months have passed since Lessie's death. Wax still intends on marrying Steris. Of course, their wedding gets interrupted because why wouldn't it, Wayne? I understand why Wayne did what he did. Wax, even at the altar, was still questioning his choice. A short amount of time had passed since Lessie had truly passed. He had grown fond of Steris over the last 6 months. It's still a lot, and I understand why Wayne decided to drop a water tower on their wedding. Not only is the wedding interrupted, but Harmony sends another conjurer by the name of Vendel to Wax's wedding to try to communicate with Wax, because Wax has not, since Lessie's passing, used an earring to communicate with Harmony. He is rightfully still upset, and Wax wants nothing to do with the conjurer, especially at his own wedding, so he's really just upset by his presence. Vendel ends up reaching out to Maracy. Maracy and Vendel are discussing everything. Wax is present in the room, though not hugely invested and certainly not wanting to be a participant, though he feels as though Vendel is trying to coax him into doing this. However, at this point, Vendel is really communicating with Maracy and is explaining that another conjurer by the name of Raylor had his spike stolen by one of the set. And this is causing Raylor to kind of go crazy, similar to Lessie's situation. And Raylor was originally looking into the Bands of Mourning, which, going back to Era 1, were the bands that the Lord Ruler had worn. Marcy's mission is basically to go and reclaim Raylor's missing spike and, if possible, recover the Bands of Mourning before the set can get to them first. Wax is a little bit interested by the set, but he's not really truly pulled into this next adventure until he sees a picture of his sister, Telsin, being essentially dragged off by members of the set, one that he thinks might be his uncle Edwin, but he can't quite tell from the picture. If you watched my second video on Shadows of Self, you'll know that Steris at this point is my favorite character, and I am looking forward to every book to see how the relationship between Wax and Steris grows. It's only been a 6 months difference between book 2 and book 3. Wax has become fond of her, for sure, but Steris is more determined now than ever to stay by Wax's side, partly because she's proving something to herself, but also to him, wanting to be by his side, wanting him to see that she has her uses and that she can help even when Wax is going on these potentially life-threatening adventures. There's a very early on bonding moment between Wax and Steris where they're on a train and she is very invested in this book that she's reading. And at the station that they just passed, Wax saw a bunch of protest signs showing a lot of hatred and animosity towards the people of Elendel. And Wax has heard the rumblings about the outer cities not being happy with the way things are. He can tell by the way the train system is structured and how they have to pay fees in order to get stuff in and out of the city that it's unfair to the people in the outer cities. He tries to ask Steris for a little bit more information, but she's so invested in the book she's reading and it intrigues him. She gets distracted for a moment and is looking for something while he takes a peek at her book and realizes it's a book on human reproduction. Wax realizes that Steris may not have a whole lot of experience with this sort of thing, and had they actually gotten married the day before, this would have been essentially their first night as husband and wife together. It's a very funny, lighthearted, embarrassing moment, especially for Steris, but it leads to a very interesting discussion between her and Wax, where Wax says something pretty insensitive that kind of deflates Steris on the topic. Wax knows it was stupid what he said, but it brings up more of his real feelings on their relationship, how he feels like it's more contractual right now, that they have these obligations to each other, and he wants it to be more organic. He actually takes a moment to really thank Steris for the last 6 months, for her being there for him and the supportive way she was without talking at him. He specifically calls on that and thanks her. Wax goes on to say that he would like their relationship not to be solely bound by the contract that they have for each other. And Steris, being Steris, is a little thrown off by this, but intrigued. And Wax, in the only way that Wax really knows how, tries to make a comparison to him hunting criminals and how he tries to do things by the way of the law. However, when necessity dictates it, there are certain things he has to do that may be outside of it. Steris kind of understands this and kind of throws it back at him of asking why he struggles with politics, why he finds them either so boring or just doesn't like them. Wax's answer is more or less just never had interest in it, asks him to go through their basically house financial records and work on looking for 3 missing boxes that they need to find. Wax is not really concerned by 3 boxes, and neither is Steris, but Steris is using this more as a point of, we're looking for something like you look for criminals, like you are hunting for them. It's this cute little moment that becomes kind of a competition between the two. They each find one of the boxings, and then it's a race to find out where the last one is and who will get to it first. Marcy walks in on this moment and is just baffled by the two having fun together, especially for her sister, who Marcy looks at Steris fondly, but in a similar light to most other people, thinking she's kind of this boring person who puts together all these things and has to be so proper and perfect and all those things. Even she is surprised by seeing Wax and Steris having fun together, spending time together and bonding. And this entire book is a bigger, grand scale adventure. I love the first two books. And in this one, we get to see them go outside the city of Lendel. We're seeing them go to the outer cities, to New Seiron, where they'll eventually go to a temple. We also get to see more people from other nations. It's not even just the people in the outer cities or Lendel. We meet the Malwish, and I won't get into too much about them, but it really feels like a bigger adventure. We're also hunting for the Bands of Mourning, these mythical artifacts, and we're discovering these new technologies. On this same train, the set are basically trying to halt Wax or stall Wax as much as possible from getting closer to discovering what it is they're doing. And they have these technology, these like little cube devices that come from the Malwish that can store allomantic charges and basically recreate those powers through the cube itself without having to use your own allomancy. We're just building on this world and this adventure, and it's amazing. We're also getting deep character growth, especially for Steris, who has been someone who hasn't been hugely present in the first two books. She had a role, and she became my favorite character at the end of book 2. But we didn't get to see a whole lot of her, and this time, like I said, she's much more determined to stay by Wax's side. She stays out of the firefights, she stays out of the most dangerous points, but she's not letting Wax leave her behind this time. You can't have an Heir to Mistborn book without having some party. There's another party that they end up going to, and Steris, as always, is very prepared for different discussions. The different people might be there. She basically gives cheat sheets to Wax on all the different discussion topics he can bring up. Wax has, been amazed by this before, and he's still impressed by how prepared she is, how knowledgeable she is, and how she can put these things together, not just for herself, but for somebody else like him to be able to use. During this party, there's lots of things that happen, but I really want to highlight Steris and how she proves herself to be more than just a person who can plan and be good in a household setting. She sneaks a gun into this party, and Wax is surprised by that. She forces herself to induce vomiting as a way to give them an excuse to get out of the party, like the main party setting, so that they can sneak around. She's just awesome. She is an amazing character. I love her so much. And as they are basically running away from this party after a series of unfortunate events where Wax may have inadvertently started a war with New Seiron, which is blowing it a little bit out of proportions, but in the context of the book, that's where he feels like he really messed up. But as they're running away and he's carrying Steris through the air, doing steel pushes, he realizes how much he has grown fond of her and cares about her and wants to protect her and wants her by his side. And he gives in to that moment and kisses her. And I believe this is their first actual kiss. I don't know if they kissed before outside of what's written in the books, but this feels like a very passionate first kiss that they have in such a romantic setting in what is only described as a very beautiful city flying through the sky. It's a beautiful moment. There's some level of foreshadowing. There's a quiet theme of death going on in the background that literally starts with Wayne and Marcy, who are going through the graveyards thinking that Raylor's missing spike might be here. They end up getting into a firefight and have to literally dive into an open grave. Shortly after that, Wax dons a costume and tries to take on this persona of being actual death in order to get information out of the gravekeeper who works for the set on where this missing spike may have gone. Talk about literal symbolism for death. On top of that, Wax at the party found a metal mine that was filled with healing abilities, and typically one cannot use somebody else's healing abilities. Through the Malwesh, we're starting to see that there are ways of getting around some of these constraints that come with Virachemy and Hemalurgy. This band that Wax found, filled with healing, Wayne can actually use, and it's filled with more healing than he's probably ever seen in his entire life. This makes Wayne a little bit more of a risk taker. When they catch up to part of the set, they find this encampment around some mysterious crash site where they find this ship, and this is where they discover the Malwesh and kind of discover what these cubes are really capable of. Wayne proposes doing what they call the Rotten Tomato maneuver, which is essentially Wax sending Wayne flying through the air. He crash lands, practically kills himself, but because he has so much healing, he's able to offset it just enough that he doesn't die. And then we have Milan, who is an immortal Khandra, and she is pretty close to being indestructible, but she can take a lot of damage. And as they are trying to look for the Bands of Mourning in the temple location where they believe them to be, it's set with all these different traps, and she basically just uses her body to trigger all the traps, and it causes her a lot of damage. She doesn't really feel pain like others do. Her body takes a toll, and this comes right before a pivotal moment where she could have maybe been more help if she hadn't been so injured. It comes at a moment where I think all this foreshadowing finally culminates in Wax's death. Wax has a death moment where they are betrayed by his sister Telsin, and she shoots him twice. Edwin goes under the temple following Wax, and Wax gets crushed by this giant boulder and is essentially left dying. Wayne is there during his dying moments, and during his dying moments, he goes or kind of ascends to meet with Harmony. Harmony is there to greet all people that end up passing on. And this is really the first time Wax has confronted Harmony since Leslie's death, and he's upset. He's upset from Telsin betraying him. He's upset from Leslie's death. He's upset that Harmony allows this stuff to happen, and he calls Harmony out on that. He asks Harmony, why? Why won't you do more to prevent suffering, period? Through this conversation, Wax and Harmony going back and forth, Harmony insinuates, would you have me just stop all pain and suffering? And then what? People are unhappy that they're not all rich, that they're not all poor. It's that sort of thing of, if you became a god, what would you do? And how would you essentially run the world? And Harmony doesn't really see it exactly that same way. Whereas Wax, at the very least, comes to the conclusion, well, you should prevent the worst from happening. Harmony is saying, perhaps I am, and you never see it because I am. This leads to a bit of foreshadowing for what we'll probably get into, I assume, in the next book, whatever is coming. Wax is rightfully upset for everything that has happened, but the way Harmony sees it, and Harmony's justification for everything, is that he is trying to place his trust in humanity, is trying to place faith in them. He helps them get to where they need to be at the right place and the right time, and then he trusts them to make the decision. Harmony has the ability, he's kind of omnipotent. He can see many possible futures, and he does the best that he believes he can without trying to force people to do what he wants them to do. Wax asks why he let Leslie die. Harmony's response is essentially, you asked me to. And that was because of seeing many possible futures and many possible variations of Wax had asked him to do it. Wax doesn't understand this. So he says to Wax, you knew she was suffering. Would you have let her? If I had given you the information, would you have tried to find a different way? And if I didn't send you and sent somebody else, would you have been upset then? And Wax really doesn't like this answer because he knows deep down he wouldn't have wanted her to suffer, and he wouldn't have wanted anybody else to be there in her final moments other than him. It's a rough reality, and it's, storytelling. It's really good. And I think this is a good highlight of, what level is God responsible for things versus humans and the decisions we make. And I think that's a big culmination of a lot of this is the decisions we make. In book 2, everyone was struggling with their decisions. While talking to Harmony from up above overseeing the world, Wax sees this flash of light and asks Harmony what it is. And Harmony says that is trust. It is at this moment that really surprised me in this book. Marcy had figured out what the Bands of Mourning were, had figured out they were kind of right in front of them as soon as they entered the temple. And because of Wayne being Wayne and wanting to trade things, it ended up basically in Marcy's bag right in front of her when she needed them. And so she takes the Bands of Mourning, taps into their power, and essentially becomes like Vin, the Ascendant Warrior. And she realizes how much power she has, how much good she could do with them, and how much better at doing things she could be than even, say, Wax. However, she makes the choice to not use them for herself. She does what she needs to get out of the situation to protect Steris and get the set away from them, but then she takes the Bands of Mourning to Wax. She makes the choice to go save him, and believing that Harmony had a little bit of guidance to helping Marcy get to where she is now, so that she has this choice of use the Bands of Mourning for herself or go and save Wax. Right or wrong, the choice that she made was to go save Wax, and this has a trickle effect, which we'll talk about in a second. But her choice in this moment to go save Wax, to give him the Bands of Mourning, also stems from her realizing that she's been holding on to this childhood dream and comparing herself to Wax because of it, wanting to be like him, and that's just not who she is. And when she finally has this power and can be that, she realizes that's not who I am, that there's something else for her. And so she takes the bands to Wax, and Wax then also gets his choice. Harmony tells him, you have the option to move on, to go into the beyond life, beyond death, or to return to the people waiting for him. Now, Wax's perspective of this is duty versus freedom. The first being freedom to move on, to let death take him, and for him to start his next adventure. Duty is to return to his friends and house and Steris and all those things and do what he needs to do, what he's told he should do, or what he thinks he should be doing because for whatever reason he believes it's his duty to do so. The way Harmony sees it is they are both freedom. They're both two different adventures. He's really emphasizing that Wax has this choice. He's not making the choice for him. Wax is choosing. And when Wax chooses, I'm going to return to my friends, Harmony asks him, are you sure? And Wax says, yes, it's what I do. It's kind of a callback to the first book where Wayne comes to Wax saying, mate, it's what you do. You go and save people. And Wax has always seen this as duty. Harmony basically says, this is the choice that you made. You should stop hating yourself for it. That's such a powerful moment of feeling like the decisions we make we're not always in control of. And I talked a little bit about this in my second video on the Shadows of Self, where Wax gets a lot of decision paralysis, or the decisions he makes, he feels like he's not really in control of them, and he hates himself for it. He feels like it's duty. He feels like he has to be individual different people at different times, that he's not just himself making choices for himself. But I think this discussion with Harmony has helped him see that he can be in control of his own choices. And Harmony places a lot of faith in Wax. Harmony tries to place his faith in humanity in general to always make the right choice. And he tells Wax, you have always been the person to make the right choice. Maricy's choice to save Wax has this ripple effect where she not only saves Wax, she gives herself a little bit of that freedom from that childhood dream that had been weighing her down. So now she can start making choices for herself and discovering who she is. Saving Wax saves the one that Steris loves. Wayne, when Wax died, was torn because his friend had just passed and he had a lot of anger. Wayne gets his friend back and his hero back. And we'll talk about Wayne in just a little bit, but before we move on, when Wax returns and Maricy's there, he looks at Maricy and says, "You could have done this yourself." And she simply says, no, I couldn't have. It's not who I am. And for the first time, these two really understand each other because Wax had just made a similar kind of decision where he is accepting himself and who he wants to be, and she just did the same. And so he understands why she chose that. And so, of course, from there, Wax goes and saves the day. I want to backtrack a little bit to when Wayne had watched Wax die and had believed he was dead, of course. Wayne picked up Wax's gun and went and essentially hunted down Telsin. Some people say that Wayne did it out of anger, out of revenge. And though I think there's a level of anger there for sure, I don't believe Wayne did it out of revenge. When Wax died and Wayne picked up the gun, Wayne had resolved to, my hero is dead. My friend and hero is dead. Wayne looked up to him that much. And he thought, what would Wax do? Because he knew Milan's life was in danger. And at this point, Wayne was starting to form a relationship with her. And because Telsin had taken the spikes, Wayne took the gun and went after Telsin. And yes, I think the shooting her in the head was certainly out of anger and possibly out of revenge, but I don't think his actions necessarily were completely that shallow or that driven. I think he did it because he said to himself, what would my hero Wax do? What would Wax do in this situation? Go save Milan. How do you save Milan? Go take out Telsin, get the spikes back. Because Telsin didn't actually die. She had healing factor. Whether Wayne actually knew she could do that or not doesn't really matter. His goal was to get these spikes back and to do it in as quick and efficient a way as possible. And he did it the way Wax would have done it. Wax is kind of a shoot first, ask questions later sort of guy if the other person has a gun, which Telsin had already proved she has no issue shooting people, especially her own brother. So Wayne did what he did, in my opinion, because without Wax there, Wayne stepped up to be the hero that Wax was, to be the hero that other people would need him to be in that moment in order to save Milan. Now, this was a really important moment for Wayne because Wayne has always been more of the embodiment of preservation, but now he picked up the gun again because Wax wasn't there. It's a big moment for him because he is overcoming some of this trauma that he's always been holding with him. And I still think he doesn't want to go around just killing people, and I think he does want to save people. But part of the shakiness of his hands of picking up a gun has been because he's never overcome this trauma. Now, this is a very forceful moment for that to have occurred, but I'll be curious to see Wayne in the next book and how this may carry over. We all struggle with choices we make. All choices have consequences. Some are good, some are bad, some are both. We have to make choices, though. And I think we all struggle with the choices we make. We have lots of regrets. But in order for us to be the best versions of ourselves, I think we really do have to take accountability for those choices, bad or good. But if we're doing the choices that matter, the choices that are hard, those tend to be the right choices, and we shouldn't hate ourselves for those choices. We shouldn't hold those against us. And most often, as we saw in this story, those choices will have ripple effects that will not only benefit you, but benefit others. And even if it doesn't necessarily benefit others, as long as it's not harming others, then make those choices for yourself. Do what is going to be good for you. Because in the long run, that will eventually help someone. If we're all at our best, then we can be better for each other. And that's really what matters. And I think that's the core theme of this book, and really what it all ties up to at the end is making the choices that are for ourselves and for others, and doing the right thing when it matters. Shadows of Self and The Bands of Mourning are amazing books, and I like reading them together and seeing the growth that we have for the characters, seeing the adventure that they go on, and the themes that the story is telling. And I would encourage each and every one of you to reach out to somebody that you care about and just check in with them. I would encourage everybody to reach out to somebody, to be there for somebody that may or may not need it, but you won't know until you reach out to them. And I think these connections and the decisions to connect with others are really important. Those were my thoughts on The Bands of Mourning. Thank you for spending a little time with me today and reflecting on the story. If you've read it, I'd love to know what your thoughts were, and if anything I said today connects with you, or if you have a different opinion, please share them in the comments below. And until next time, I'll have a hot cup of coffee waiting for you and another story to share.